Hi guys, it's Kyne. Welcome back to my channel. So today's video, I am going to show you how I created this face cast of myself. What do you think? Does it look like me? If you've never seen one of these before, they're mainly used for sculpting face prosthetics for like special effects makeup. And you've seen me do special effects on my channel before, but the purpose of having one of these is it allows a lot of the sculpting process to be done off of the face, so you're not like sitting in a chair waiting for it to dry for hours. And it makes it so that the prosthetics transfer perfectly from here to your face because it's a perfect mold of your face. In my next video, I'll show you a look that I created using this guy. I'll show you how to use it and how to make the prosthetics and put them on. But in today's video, I am just going to show you how I made this. As a forewarning, let me just add here that good face casts used by real makeup artists are done by professionals who have assistants that will help you do it. They have better materials and higher standards. None of those things we have, but if you want to see how I made this thing all by myself for really cheap, I'm going to walk you through every step of the way. So many costume changes in this video, or I should just say pajama changes. So first we're going to prep our face. We're going to be taking a mold of our face, so we need to make sure that none of our hair is going to get pulled out. So I'm gluing my eyebrows down with glue just so that there's that waxy glue stick barrier protecting the brows. Some people use Vaseline for this, which I will use later on, but I'm just so used to glue stick and I trust it a lot. Putting on a wig cap to cover my hair and gluing down my sideburns too so that there's just no hair that can get glue all up in it. And then I took some plastic wrap and wrapped it around my head to cover my wig cap. The reason why is because I want to take my mold farther back than my hairline allows. In this case, it's better to make your mold too big and have lots of extra space. You'll see why later. And it's just better to do this over the plastic wrap than my wig cap since it's fabric. Now I am taking some petroleum jelly and I'm putting this all over my face. I'm not putting the molding agent on my eyes, but I'm covering that too with this just to be safe. This will also help kind of lube us up just to take the mold off later, and it'll also protect all your little sensitive baby hairs too. And now finally we're ready to take the mold of our face. I'm using plaster strips for this process. It might also be called plaster bandages or plaster cloth. This comes in like a big roll. It feels really dry and chalky, but you're gonna cut it up and one at a time dip it into a bowl of warm water to activate it. Wipe off that excess water and then start putting it on your face, rubbing it in, making sure to really get all up in there. Obviously, we're not covering up our nostrils or eyes because we need to breathe and see, but we are covering up everything else. And it's better to use smaller strips of this and work little by little so that each piece can really mold to that area of the face. You can think of plaster as almost being similar to like a cement, since it's a powder that mixes with water to get hard. The difference is that this kind of plaster is made of gypsum. It's also called Plaster of Paris due to the place in Paris where a large gypsum deposit was found. Fun fact. And this stuff is commonly used in arts and crafts. I remember when I was young, we did this as an activity on a school field trip, wrapping our face in these plaster bandages, and then we would take them off and paint them, which is how I know it's pretty safe to use on your face as long as you're leaving room to see and breathe. The way the professionals do it usually is going to be with a different molding material, and they'll cover your eyes since it's not you doing it to yourself, which is why some people say it can feel really uncomfortable or even claustrophobic. I had no problems with it personally. If you have problems with it, just say that you got this idea from someone else. Anyway, as you can see, I did go a little bit past my forehead, past my ears, past my chin. Make sure to get the underside of your chin, especially because we need to create a big bowl to pour the liquid plaster into. This mask itself is too rough and imperfect of a surface to be our face cast, so we're going to need to pour something to take the shape inside of it. And for that reason, before you take it off, make sure if you still have a lot of plaster strips left, go over it with another layer so it's really thick and sturdy. You can tell when it's dry just by feeling the surface. You should be able to knock on it and tap it. Make some facial expressions to start loosening up the insides, and you should be able to pull this off all in one piece. Now what you're about to see is my Oscar-winning performance of me being totally unnecessarily dramatic when taking this off. Now we can pour the plaster into this, but first before that, we need to patch shut the eye holes and the nostrils and any other holes you might find in it, giving that a few layers so it's thick, letting it dry because there can't be any holes or else the product we put inside is going to leak right through. Clean yourself up and you're ready to move on to the next step. I got this plaster on Amazon. It's called Plaster of Paris. Like I said, pretty much the same thing we just used for the bandages, except this is like in a powder form, which we're gonna mix with water and pour. In total, I think I paid only like $30 for all of this stuff. It was hard to open, okay? I made a little towel bowl for my mold to sit in since we need this to lay completely flat, and I just sprayed that shit with some PAM so that there's some lubricant in between and we can separate this from the mold after it dries. So I'm mixing up my plaster now with equal parts water and powder, and the first little bit I put in with a spoon so I can make sure to get every little crevice of the mask. If you just start pouring this in, you can get air bubbles, so do a little bit at a time and make sure it really seeps in there. And then you can just pour it full. You can see I didn't fill it right up to the brim so it wouldn't get too messy, but it helped that my mold was so big since I went past the forehead and chin. And again, just make sure to stir out all of the air bubbles before letting it dry for about a day, I'd say.
Day 2.
So after about a day, I started ripping the bandages off, which was really easy since I lubed it up. It's probably going to be pretty rough and textured because of the texture of the bandages, but we can fix that all with sandpaper. But aside from the smoothness, mine had a few bigger mistakes. For one thing, the plaster was so heavy it weighed down too much pressure on the face, so the nose was pressed up against the bowl, and the tip of the nose now was like crushed. It looks like, I don't know, Michael Jackson or something. And my eyes also look weird. I think it's because the last pieces I put on were the eye holes and the thickness was like uneven. Thankfully, I didn't have any air bubbles, but if you do, the way that we can fix all of these problems is just by using a little bit more of that plaster mixture. If you add a little bit extra powder to the water, you get to a thicker clay-like consistency that you can kind of build up and mold. So I used that to restructure the tip of the nose and add some height where the balls of the eyes should have been. Obviously, this is like a last resort method of fixing things when they've gone wrong. You don't want to have to rely on this because the best you can do here is just guess what these features should have looked like, when the ideal way to do things is to use the real mold of your face. I should also add in here, when using that liquid plaster, don't just wash your bowl off with water in the sink because it can ruin your plumbing if any of that small amount of plaster hardens. I would say either wait for it to dry and toss it in the garbage, or wash it outside and not into your drains. Anyway, now that we fixed that nose and eyes and let them dry, the next step is to fine-tune the rest of the face with sandpaper to smooth out the texture. And I also use my little palette knife to carve out deeper nostrils and define my lips, since these parts didn't really turn out that nice. And try to cover your mouth in all of this, since this stuff is probably not so great for your lungs.
I'd like to keep it on, please.
Anyway, this process takes pretty long, but it's actually kind of fun because you never really get to see what your face looks like outside of pictures and your reflections, unless you have like an identical twin. So it's really interesting working on an exact mold of you. I feel like that one episode of SpongeBob. Yeah, except I'm Squidward in this situation. Honestly, thinking about it now, the texture of this is probably just representative of my terrible skin, but I sanded it smooth anyway because I can, okay? Finally, when you're happy with it, dust off the powder and cover it in a few layers of some sort of coating. I used wood glue because that's what we had in our basement. This is to protect the mold in all of your projects, so if you get something on it that you can't take off, you can kind of just peel that layer of glue and reapply. So do a few coats of these and let it dry, and you guys, this is what the finished face cast looks like. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you liked this video and learned something cool. Make sure you're subscribing to my channel so you can stay tuned for my next video where I show you how to use your face cast and put it into action with a prosthetic application. But until then, I hope you guys are all doing well, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!